Nostalgia and NBA Opinions and Arguments by Liam Chaio. Let's start off by explaining the situation of nostalgia in the NBA. Many fans come together to make opinions and talk about older players that they enjoyed watching. Over time, they can strengthen each other to the point where they build communities. Deborah Paredes from the 2025 stimulus material describes how Selena Quintanilha's community came together and commemorated her after her death, similarly to how NBA fans talk about retired players. Over time, these groups have led to the NBA community being primarily dominated by older fans with opinions affected by nostalgia. One player that these fans talk about is Bill Russell. He's considered as one of the best players of all time by many fans, but nostalgia leads them to forget about the level of competition that he played with. So let's take a look at his stats. Over 13 years in the NBA, he won 11 championships, made 12 All-Star appearances, and won 5 MVPs, while only averaging around 15 points. These are great stats, but it shows how easy it was to dominate the league at that time, as now you must be twice as good just to be nearly as successful. Adam Fromwell from Bleacher Report describes it as the weakest era of NBA, giving a 3 out of 30 level of competition. So, how do we think this way using nostalgia? Karl-Heinz Baumel from Regensburg University states that the selective retrieval of some non-target information can impair subsequent retrieval of other target information in a finding known as retrieval-induced forgetting. This shows that the retrieval of our nostalgia can lead us to remember some memories that we want to remember and forget other information that we don't. We see selective memory and nostalgia through fans of Michael Jordan. With the use of selective memory, fans tend to forget about the many gambling controversies that Jordan had. He had a large gambling addiction, which went to the point where he even missed the Bulls' trip to the White House just to gamble with friends. Fans will also forget about the fact that Jordan was surrounded with a team of stars, while the players he played against were not nearly as good as they are now. The year after he retired, the Bulls remained successful, finishing as the third best team in the Eastern Conference, showing that possibly Jordan was not needed that much for the Bulls' success. So, we know why our brains think of nostalgia now, but how do our brains work when they think this way? Well, studies from Zian Yang from the Institution of Psychology in Beijing states that nostalgia activates the brain for activities where reflection, memory processing, and reward processing are used, where the hippocampus, medial prefrontal cortex, posterior cingulate cortex, and the precuneus are all activated, all parts of the brains used for the previously mentioned activities. More research from Chris Bruin, a professor in psychology in the University of London, showed that around 47% of people recall memories from the past, but only around 15% of them retain full memories. These studies show that our brains are motivated to think about nostalgia, but most of the time these memories are not true. The debate around the Will Chamberlain's 100-point game is an example of how nostalgia can twist our opinions to potentially believe in false opinions. The Will Chamberlain 100-point game is a very two-sided debate, as many people say that there was some radio, TV, and photo evidence to make it true, but others state that it was not full, and saying that the game did not actually happen. Many people lean on the nostalgia and memory of other fans to make the decision for them. Even though they have little proof of it actually happening, they use nostalgia to make the decision for themselves. Konstantin Sedikides, a professor of social psychology in the University of Southampton, describes this as using nostalgia to make opinions. This example is similar to John Norberg's false nostalgia, where he describes the false Gothic ruins found in Hagley Park, England. People built replicas of real Gothic ruins in this park, fooling many people to believe that they were true. This shows how easily people can believe a concept that is surrounded by nostalgia. Similarly to how fans use nostalgia to believe in the Chamberlain 100-point game, Norberg states that nostalgia is a natural, even important state of mind, according to psychologists. Anchoring our identity in something enduring helps us when all that is solid seems to be melting into the air. This quote shows us how we use nostalgia to give us thoughts that make us feel safe about a topic and how people jump to conclusions, similar to how people jump to conclusions about the debate of the World Champion 100-point game, just because they heard one person say one way or the other. So, how can we fix this recurring problem of nostalgia affecting NBA opinions and arguments? Well, one way would be to restore statistics from the past and make them easily available to everyone. Another way would be to document notable stories, events, and games from famous players. One example of this is The Last Dance, where Michael Jordan's ups and downs of his career were documented by ESPN. These two solutions would help us inform and educate every fan about stories behind famous NBA players, removing doubt and arguments behind them. In conclusion, NBA fans use nostalgia and selective memory in many ways. They can forget about certain information while highlighting different memories, and they can also be led to believe in false opinions and facts. We see this effect through players like Michael Jordan, Will Chamberlain, and Bill Russell. Ultimately, nostalgia leads to swayed opinions of many NBA fans, leading to havoc in the NBA community. This is my bibliography.
Okay, thank you, Leon. Can you tell me if there was something you were looking for that you couldn't find in your research?
Well,
and if so, what would you have liked?
There were two things I was looking for. Number one, there weren't any actual credible sources that directly linked nostalgia to the NBA. So when I was researching, I just had to find sources about nostalgia that were similar to how people think about the NBA. And also, it would have been helpful to find statistics that actually show how NBA fans truly think about the NBA, because during this whole paper, I was mainly going off the general consensus that NBA fans do have a little bit of nostalgia, while it would have helped to see an actual number that describes how people think about the NBA.
Okay, and
Good morning, Bronco. Please fly down to the area. Birthday wishes go out to Christian Aston and the crowd from all the sharing, maybe the Jerry, maybe Obama, and all Bronco scholars of the world. Also, birthday wishes go across the country, which is reaching and mentioning all Bronco people scholars of the world. Happy birthday to you. The Bronco gets back and moves back on Wednesday, 23rd afternoon. This year's students were come out with the more last week. All students will trust each player by their pancakes or not. With tears for the human beings between 10 and 7 are there will be one surprise. Please know that sunglasses and hats should not be worn in sight. Very much before we go to school. On that note, Rockville, Williams, on April 26th, 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. on Rosie Campus from that line on the list of the star. Step into the door, the Hollywood with the dazzling music of the song. Show down the front of the live show, hit the sort of sweet guitar left.
so how is your conclusion in conversation with the body of literature of other sources that you looked at?
Well, all the sources I looked at surrounding nostalgia were similar to what I ended up thinking, because all the sources said that nostalgia is used to jump to conclusions and it can be used to make false beliefs, just as how I linked that to the NBA, because I tried to find sources that were similar to the point I was trying to make so that they sounded more credible and I could use them more strongly. And about the NBA, I specifically researched sources that explain stories and statistics that proved my point, so they wouldn't go against what I was trying to say.
Okay, thank you.